What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to odds.com. I'm your boy Clint, and this is total madness for UFC Vegas 18. We are talking total rounds, over 1.5, under 2.5. How long is this fight going to last? We're not talking who's going to win or lose it. If you want to check out my full breakdown of UFC Vegas 18, go to odds.com, click the little UFC tab, you'll get the full replay there. So if you're all settled in and ready to go, let's talk some fights and try to put some money in your pocket for Saturday. Let's kick this thing off. We got a banger for the first fight of the night. Ode Osbourne taking on Jerome Rivera. Now, Ode Osbourne is getting a short notice replacement here. He lost his initial opponent. Jerome Rivera is stepping in. Ode is 8-3-0. Jerome is 10-4-0. And this is a spot where I absolutely love Ode Osbourne. He was a big underdog, and now he's a big favorite. We've got a total here set at 2.5 rounds, and y'all know me. I love my violence. We are back in the UFC Apex. We are in the small cage that's going to force these fighters to engage with one another. We see a whole lot more unders cash in the UFC Apex. So what we've got here is Jerome Rivera, a fighter that is just not UFC caliber. I don't think he's quite there yet. He's a decent striker, but he's got that tall man defense. He leaves his chin open, and he's got some serious durability problems. He's got some issues. Ode Osbourne is a freak athlete. This guy is explosive. He's powerful. He's fast. He hits hard. He's got a nasty submission game. I like the under 2.5 here. The over 2.5 is minus 115. The under 2.5 is minus 115 or minus 110. We've got a straight pick 'em here on the line. In some places, I'm seeing minus 125 on the under, slight juice to that under side of things. So the bookies agree with us. This is more likely to go under than it is to go over. And as we always talk about, what I want when I bet these totals is not one, but two fighters. I want both sides to help me cash that ticket. Ode Osbourne has more than enough finishing power to go ahead and get this thing done. And while Jerome Rivera doesn't really have that, he's not super known for finishing, what he does have is the weakness. He's got the chin issues, he's got the durability issues. We've seen him be finished, and especially at the UFC level, we have seen him get taken out. So he is going to help us cash that under. I also like Ode Osbourne inside the distance at a plus price if that's something you would rather take than the total. But just in case Ode slips on a banana and Jerome Rivera lands something big on him, the under 2.5 will allow you to still cash your ticket. Next up, we've got another short notice replacement fight. Seung Woo Choi taking on Youssef Zalal. Now, if you've been with me here on the podcast for a long time, you know I'm a huge fan of Youssef Zalal, but this is not a fight that I think is a very good one for him stylistically speaking. Total here set at 2.5. The over is minus 200. The under is plus 170. So you've got to lay 2-1 for this thing to get over 2.5 rounds and make it all the way to the judges' scorecards. That is mostly because of Youssef Zalal. This dude is incredibly elusive. He's hard to hit. He's shown no durability issues, and he's kind of a decision machine. Even when he's had his opponents in trouble, he's got an offensive submission game. He can't quite get the finish. He hasn't been able to get it done in the UFC so far. Seung Woo Choi has been submitted, but just the once. Every other time he's gone to decision himself. But don't let that fool you. This kid has got some solid striking. He's got some pop in his punches, power in his hands, and he does have a reach advantage here against Youssef Zalal. In my opinion, I don't think that Youssef Zalal is going to be able to employ the wrestling game plan that the previous opponents Seung Woo Choi has faced have been able to do. And I think this is going to be a 15-minute stand-up affair. Whether or not one of these guys catches the other, neither of them has shown those durability issues like I've mentioned, so I have to look at the over. But I think this fight could get really hairy in the third round, so it's not one that I plan on going anywhere near from a betting perspective. Molly McCann taking on Lara Procopio. We've got Molly coming in 10-3. Lara is 6-1. Both of these women are incredibly durable, difficult to finish, and neither of them have a ton of finishing ability. If Molly McCann can get you on the floor, she absolutely has that devastating ground and pound. She can take you out. She hits hard. Lara Procopio, she's a slick boxer, a high volume striker, but she doesn't really have that pop on her punches. What she does carry with her, though, is a BJJ black belt. We've got a total here set at 2.5 as usual with these women's fights. The over is juiced at minus 355. The under comeback is plus 295. So if you think there's an opportunity for one of these women to get in a dominant position and pound the other one to oblivion, that under 2.5 is a juicy big plus line that is very enticing. Not one that I personally plan on taking. I think if any way this thing goes under, it will be Lara Procopio by submission, and in that case you would be much better off just taking that prop. You get plus 800, plus 840 if you take Lara Procopio by submission, and I think that would be a better way to look. Even if you want to include that TKO and go Lara Procopio inside the distance, you're going to get a better number than that plus 295. So that would be the way I would look here. I don't see Molly McCann finishing here, and with that being said, you got to stay off the total if only one side of your bet is going to cash, when the opponent that they're supposed to be finishing is very durable and very hard to finish. Just side with your fighter inside the distance instead of playing the total. This one's a pass. Next up, we've got Karol Rosa taking on Jocelyn Edwards. This is another fight where, we can just save a little bit of time. Both these women are very talented strikers. Both these women are very hard to finish, and they've shown good things about themselves. Karol Rosa, I think, has a bit of an advantage. But I don't see her putting Jocelyn Edwards away. She's got that volume style. Her last opponent was Lara Procopio. They both went over 150 significant strikes in that fight. Neither of them went down. So the over 2.5 here, minus 250, under 2.5, plus 195. Can't touch it, not interested. It's probably going to the judges' scorecards, but it should be a fun fight. Next up, we've got Devontae Smith taking on Justin James. Now, this is where stuff gets interesting. Devontae Smith is an absolute powerhouse. We saw him get absolutely flatlined by Karma Worthy last time out. That was a bit of a weird spot because him and Karma were training partners, and it seemed like Karma Worthy didn't have a problem with knocking his old boy out, whereas Devontae Smith did look a little bit hesitant in that spot. Now he's getting Justin James. Justin James is a guy who's really struggled at the UFC level after making his debut, pulling one of the biggest upsets we've ever seen. This guy knows one direction, and that's forward. He comes at you with big power, but he doesn't leave himself much gas in the tank if he doesn't get that finish. I think this is going to be a one-round fight, and so do the bookies. We've got a total here set at 1.5. Over 1.5 is plus 140. Under 1.5 is minus 160. It's not a pretty price tag, but if you were going to bet this one, you'd have to look under. Because if Justin James doesn't put Devontae Smith away in the first round, he probably is not going to have much left to give in the second round. And Devontae Smith is probably going to finish Justin James. It's just a matter of when and how he does it. So you're going to be sweating that 2 minutes and 30 seconds at the beginning of the second round maybe, but I don't see this one going over. Next up, we've got Timur Valiev taking on Martin Day. Yet another COVID short notice replacement. Welcome back to Vegas, folks. We are no longer on the island. We're not going to get these safe, secure fight cards where we don't have to worry about anybody dropping out. There's going to be pieces mixing, moving, and matching every single week, probably every day of the week, and the card is going to shrink by fight time on Saturday. We've got a total here set at 2.5, plus 100, even money on the over 2.5. Minus 120 on the under 2.5. And I kind of like the violence here. If I was going to take a shot, I'd be looking at the under. Martin Day has a significant height and reach advantage in this spot. Martin Day has some impressive power on the feet. When this guy is on, when this guy is switched in the right direction, he can do some damage in the striking realm. However, he's taken on Timur Valiev, who's a much more skilled, much more technical fighter than he is. A guy training with Frankie Edgar. A guy who was just dominating his last fight before he slipped on a banana peel and got knocked out in round 2. And therein lies kind of the issue and why I want to take the under rather than the over. We've seen Timur Valiev shit the bed. We've seen this guy slip and get knocked down and taken out against an opponent who he was dominating bell to bell. It's already happened. We know it can happen again. I don't want to trust this guy as a gigantic minus 400 favorite, but at the same time, he absolutely should dominate. We've also seen Martin Day taken down and just smothered on the ground and choked out, and that's something Timur Valiev is totally capable of doing. Both guys can contribute to my under here, offensively speaking, and both guys have contributed to an under cashing by having durability problems. The under 2.5 at minus 120 would be the way that I'd be looking. Next up, light heavyweight fight between Mike Slow Rodriguez and Danilo Marquez. Just what a garbage fight we have here. This one is going to be an absolute slop fest. Total set at 1.5. It is pick'em, folks. Minus 110 on either side of the line. Some minus 120s to the under 1.5 out here. And it makes sense. Danilo Marquez is a 35-year-old fighter who beat the worst man in the UFC to get his job and get this, I guess, step up in competition against Mike Rodriguez. Now, Mike Rodriguez has some excellent Muay Thai. The guy is tall, he's long, he hits really, really hard, but he makes bad decisions, and he doesn't have a good ground game. Danilo Marques is a black belt, and he's a guy that sells out for the takedown. If he's able to walk through the fire in round one and put Mike Rodriguez on his back, Danilo Marques could pound him out. Danilo Marques could absolutely submit him in this fight. But if he can't get the takedown, if he gets caught up in that clinch, if Mike Rodriguez lands one of those big old knees, Danilo Marques is probably going down, and he's probably going to collapse like a sack of potatoes. So I've got to look under 1.5 on this one, but there's a weird spider senses tingling, that itchy feeling on the back of my neck telling me to just stay away from this one. I feel like it's Mike Rodriguez. I feel like it's Mike Rodriguez by knockout, but if Marques is able to secure a takedown, get on top of him, and then just be kind of tired and exhausted and grind on him, this one could squeeze its way over. So I wouldn't trust either of these guys with your money. And if you have to make a bet, if you've got to have that degenerate action, don't worry. I understand. I'm here for you. I would take the under 1.5. Michael Johnson taking on Clay Guida. The Carpenter returns, closing out the preliminary card of this fight. We've got two fighters, once again, that are just incredibly untrustworthy. Clay Guida's 39 years old. He's knocking on that door of 40, somehow still fighting professionally. Michael Johnson, the guy that looks like $1 million until he doesn't. And he should whoop Guida here. However, Guida has a hell of a chin and is somehow still intact. He has only been knocked out twice in his entire UFC career, and that is saying something. Both these guys get submitted a lot, but neither of them really get knocked out. And Clay Guida is nothing but a wrestler. He is the epitome of not contributing to an undercashing for me. Michael Johnson has no submission offense. Therefore, he doesn't have much of a chance to take out Clay Guida because Guida's chin largely has held up. So this is a spot where I've got to say it goes over. For some reason, I don't like it. I feel like under is coming. The total's set at 2.5. The over is minus 220. The under is plus 180. And I think Michael Johnson is going to be the guy that cracks the chin of Clay Guida. I just feel like that's a possibility. And we've seen Michael Johnson get exhausted in round two, give up takedowns, give up submissions. Clay Guida is not much of a finisher. He's a grinder, but if Michael Johnson gets tired enough and makes a mistake, he is the king of all bed shitters. He absolutely could end up getting choked out on the bottom, even against a guy like Clay Guida. So my gut, for some reason, says under, but again, just not one that I want to touch. There's no way anybody should be putting money on this particular fight because there's so many questions around it. We have no idea how this thing is going to play out until they close that cage door. Get your fireball, get your popcorn, enjoy this one. We start off the main card with a lightweight fight. Carlos Diego Ferreira taking on Beneil Dariush. This is going to be maybe my forerunner for fight of the night. This one should be an absolute banger as long as it lasts. We've got a total set at 2.5. The over 2.5 is minus 135. The under 2.5 is plus 115. And once again, I kind of like a violence bet here. Now, Carlos Diego Ferreira, very, very durable, very hard to finish, and we've seen that in his history. So that is a little bit of a negative here. But Beneil Dariush, on the flip side of this thing, he has shown destructive knockout power in his last couple fights. He had one of the best 2020 careers of any fighter on the roster. 2 big-time knockouts over tough, durable guys that nobody saw getting finished. So if anybody's going to have the power to finish someone like Carlos Diego Ferreira, Dariush might just be the man to do it. They're both coming locked and loaded with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts, so a submission is entirely possible from either one of these men. And then Dariush actually has some durability problems. In his last couple of fights, he's been hurt by his opponents, and that spurred him on to go for broke and then really drive for that finish because he was in trouble himself. So I've got a feeling that if Carlos Diego clips him early, Diego might just be able to kind of stay on him. Don't rush the kill. Don't jump all over him trying to get it. Stay calm, stay reserved. Pick apart at him a little bit more, and it'll eventually come to you. I feel like this fight ends in round 2. Again, it's not a super strong lean, but the plus 115, plus 110 on the under 2.5, if I had to bet it, would be the way that I'd be looking here in this spot. Featherweight fight up next. Cody Stamann taking on the short notice replacement, Askar. You heard that correct. Dude's first name and last name are the exact same. Cody Stamann was supposed to fight Andre Ewell, and Askar is a big step down from Andre Ewell, in my opinion, because Askar is a bronze medal version of Cody Stamann. He's just He wants to grind, he wants to grapple, he wants to use his elusive striking to grind his way to a 15-minute decision, and that's exactly what Cody Stamann does. Expect Cody Stamann to do it better. That's it. So Cody Stamann is rightfully a massive favorite here, but at the same time, he is a guy that just goes to decision. Outside of being submitted by some of the all-stars in the division himself, he doesn't finish or get finished. Now, his opponent here coming in on short notice, that's the big ticket for me. Because if Askar is not coming in here correct, Cody Stamann could land some ground and pound. He could land a submission. It's entirely possible for him to put away somebody who is not prepared for a championship caliber 15-minute fight. And do not be mistaken, Cody Stamann on his best night is championship caliber. So I would be tempted, once again, on the under. I hate it because it's Cody Stamann, so I'm probably not going to play it. But we've got the 2.5 over at minus 250, and the under is plus 210. So you're getting a nice juicy number on that under 2.5. The only problem, once again, is Cody is incredibly durable. He is ridiculously hard to put away. I do not see Askar putting him away. Cody could potentially put away Askar, but if he's going to do it, it's not going to be early, it's going to be late. So I don't have any interest in playing this total, although it might end up hitting. I would look more at Cody Stamann inside the distance for a small sprinkle. I may even play Cody Stamann round 3, because I expect Askar to gas out, and I expect if the finish is going to happen, it's going to come very near the end of the fight. So don't touch this under. I don't think it cashes. If it does cash, it's going to be close. And it's going to be hairy to get there. Plus 200 is probably just not enough. Unless we see Askar really struggling on the scales on Friday, then I would think the under 2.5 might be a little bit more in play if he's not coming correct. Flyweight fight, Alexandre Pantoja taking on Manel Kape. Now, if you don't know Kape, not sure how you pronounce it. Manel comes to us from Ryzen. He's the champion over there, making his flip over here to the UFC, and he's going right into the deep end. I mean, Pantoja is just an absolute monster, proven commodity, a guy that we really like to see. And they've got some respect here from Manel. This line is close to a pick'em. Total here is at 2.5. The over 2.5 is plus 125. The under 2.5 is minus 145. Now, we've seen Alexandre Pantoja. His finishing ability is off the charts. If you do not belong in the title conversation, if you're not a true contender, he just gets you out of there unceremoniously. He can knock you out. He can submit you. He can beat you basically any way he wants to. So the finishing ability from Pantoja's side is there. Manel Kape, same thing. Dude has some bombs in his hands. He's extremely athletic. He's very fast. He closes range very well. And he's really hard to put away. That's the thing on Manel Kape's side of things, is that he is not a guy that we've seen prone to being finished. He's been submitted twice, but beyond that, he's pretty stellar in that area. Now, he's going to be going up against Pantoja here because the submission is definitely on the table. But for some reason, I'm thinking this is going to be a very well-matched fight that potentially goes all the way to the judges' scorecards. That over 2.5 at plus 125 is kind of the way I'd be looking here. We've seen Pantoja take the very best the UFC has to offer, and that includes Deiveson Figueiredo, the god of war. This man went 15 full minutes with the hardest-hitting flyweight on the planet. I don't think Manel Kape hits harder than Deiveson Figueiredo. So because of that, I expect Pantoja to be able to go 15. Same on the flip side of Kape, unless he gets tired and makes a mistake, which coming in for his UFC debut, you'd expect he'd be coming in right. I think he's going to hang in there, use his wrestling, use his strength and his explosiveness. I think Alexandre Pantoja boxes him up for about 15 minutes, and then we see a decision. I like the plus 125 on the over 2.5. Women's bantamweight here, canceled. Marion Renault, Macy Chiasson. Unfortunately, Marion has popped for COVID. That fight is being kicked down the lane about 2-3 weeks. They have rescheduled that one, so we'll talk about it another time. Bantamweight co-main event, Corey Sandhagen taking on Frankie the Answer Edgar, and what a fight we've got here. This is going to be an absolute young blood versus old lion type of matchup. I love it. Total here set at 2.5. Over 2.5 is minus 225. Under 2.5 is plus 160. Plus 190. I apologize. Plus 190. This is a really tough fight to me. The violence bet is there. Frankie's getting old. He's 39 years old. He's about to be 40. But somehow he's managed to take everything everybody has to offer, and especially down at bantamweight, he's shown that he can be durable and take punishment the way that he used to. This is his natural weight class. It's where he should have been all along. Corey Sandhagen on the feet is a beast. Absolute monster, but he is no stranger to taking a fight to decision. My gut tells me that Frankie Edgar is going to be live in this spot. He'll be able to mix in his wrestling. He'll be able to expose that weakness to Corey Sandhagen on the ground. And in a 15-minute fight, we have no questions about Frankie Edgar's heart, durability, or gas tank. It's not a 25-minute fight, and he runs those every single weekend. Frankie is no stranger to going 25 minutes in the octagon against heavy hitters. So the fact that he's only got 15 minutes to work with here and just needs to survive against Corey for 15, the fact that Corey is coming off of big, explosive, powerful highlight reel knockouts like over Marlon Moraes, leads me to believe that I think he's got the opportunity to take this thing all the way to the judges' scorecards. I don't want to lay minus 230 and fade a guy like Corey when this thing can very easily end at any point in time, but I see this one going to the judges' scorecards, and honestly, I think Frankie's a little bit live. The durability of both of these men is something that's going to help that over get there. Main event time, Alistair Overeem taking on Alexandre Volkov, and this is my big spot for the night, folks. I love this fight. Alistair Overeem, we've seen his ups and downs. We've seen his transition from being the best striker in the heavyweight division to being one of the better grapplers in the heavyweight division. He's always had that skill set in his back pocket, but because of his durability, because he's getting older, he's really had to rely on it that much more. He doesn't want none with these young, hungry guns at heavyweight. He doesn't want to go to war and test his chin out against these guys that hit just so hard at the top end of the division anymore. I don't expect that to change here. For the last 2 years, Alistair Overeem has relied on his grappling, so he's going to try to do that here again, especially because his teammate Curtis Blaydes just fought Volkov and used that strategy very successfully to win a 25-minute decision. And don't forget, this is a 25-minute main event. So Alistair Overeem is going to have to protect that chin for a full 25 minutes, and the last time we saw him in that spot, he slipped up and tripped right at the finish line. Jairzinho Rosenstruik was able to touch that chin and put him down. Alexandre Volkov has been doing nothing but make improvements. This guy is a sick striker, big knockout power, just added 20 pounds of muscle so that he can grapple with these big boys more appropriately. He learned his lesson when he fought Curtis Blaydes and just didn't have the strength to stand up to that man. But he's more than capable of going deep into fights, 25 minutes, keeping up a striking pace. He is a cardio machine at the heavyweight division, and it's something I've really enjoyed watching. This is one that I think is going to finish in the championship rounds. I think Alistair Overeem is going to protect his chin. I think he's going to dip, dodge, duck, dive, and dodge his way as far into this fight as he can. But eventually, Volkov's ability to defend the takedown, his get-up game, his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt will come into play, and he'll be able to bring this fight back to a standing position where he really wants it to be. And once that happens, I don't think Alistair Overeem is going to be defensively sound enough for Volkov to not be able to land that crushing knockout. I think Volkov is going to get him. I think he's going to get him late. And we have seen Volkov knocked out against Derek Lewis. That was a last-second slip-up. He thought he had won the fight. He thought the fight was over, dropped his guard, ate a bomb, and that was the only reason that he went out. It's not like he's chinny or anything like that. He's very defensively sound. But it's possible for someone the caliber of Overeem to get in there and land a bomb just like that. So we have alternate totals having this be the main event. The total mainly is set at 2.5. The over is minus 125. The under is minus 105. And I would look over. I absolutely would look over. So that puts us at the 2 minute and 30-second mark of the third round. I do think this fight gets into the third round and potentially beyond. However, I think this fight ends in round 4. So once we get to the alternate total of over 3.5, over 3.5 is plus 130, under 3.5 is minus 175. I think that's a little steep. I do think it ends in the fourth round, but I don't know if it happens immediately in the first 2 minutes and 30 seconds of the fourth round, so I don't want to lay any type of minus 175 on that under 3.5. Now, once you get up to over 4.5 or the fight doesn't go to decision, I think you're in a little bit better spot. The under 4.5 is minus 225. The fight doesn't go to decision is about minus 250, minus 275, depending on where you're shopping. So I like the final two unders, and I like the first two overs. If you want to lay minus 200 on the over 1.5, I don't hate that. Alexandre Volkov is not a fast starter. He's not a guy like Walt Harris that's going to bum rush Overeem and try to put him away in the first round. I think both these guys feel each other out, play it safe, play it secure. And I really think that both of their strategies is going to be to drag this thing late. Overeem has won that way multiple times in his last couple fights, exposing the young guns' weakness, their gas tank problems, their grappling concerns when they get tired later. However, that's not going to work on Volkov. And Volkov did the same thing to Fabricio Verdum. And even in the Curtis Blades fight in round 4 and round 5, he started to look better because his gas tank just never drained, and he was able to start mounting offense late. So I do think this fight is going to turn up the longer it goes, and I think it ends in the 4th round. So over 2.5 would be the play here. And beyond that, the other totals are a little bit sketchy. So good luck on all your degenerate action. Good luck on your betting. We've found a couple spots on this card that I think from a totals perspective can potentially put some money in your pockets. Make sure you smash that like button for me. Make sure you give the video a share. Head on over to odds.com. Thank you all so much for your support and have a wonderful rest of your week. Good luck and let's roll.